setting the tone for the next 2 days. Not Stephen. Thank you, Surjit. Where are you? Yeah, thanks, Surjit, for that thought-provoking devotions this morning. In the timetable, I see that against my name it says context setting. Am I right? Is that it? Now I'm wondering whether we should continue with my context setting, because I think Surjit has done the context setting for us for the next 2 days in terms of what do we mean by social entrepreneurship, and how do we apply that to our lives in the mission as part of the Leprosy Mission India. Nevertheless, I think I'll go ahead with this, setting the context for our discussions and for our deliberations, interactions over the next two days. I've just called it Towards Sustainability. That's the theme for the Annual Country Learning 2015. Looking back, moving forward. I thought we are focusing on models for social entrepreneurship, and how do we look, or how do we think that social entrepreneurship would lead us to a situation where we can think of ourselves as being financially sustainable or just being sustainable. The word social entrepreneurship was new to us, in the sense that new in terms of applying it to our work. But if you all remember, even 15 years ago, we actually started using the principles of social entrepreneurship in our hospitals. We said that we would, when we started talking about community hospitals, said we will invest in these hospitals so that they can generate income from general patients, and therefore, and we even went to the extent of saying the income that's generated from general patients would in some way or to some extent subsidize the costs of treatment, managing people affected by leprosy. So the principles of social entrepreneurship have been applied, we ourselves have applied it for many, many years. We were not terminology savvy. We didn't understand the word social entrepreneurship while we were actually doing it for the past 10 to 15 years. Now the focus has shifted in terms of how do we kind of put what we're doing into boxes. Boxes called social entrepreneurship, boxes called disruptive innovation, etc. So it's not new to us, but I think it's always good to go back to what we've been doing in the past, and then trying to rationalize what has been done in terms of what needs to be done for the future. And I think that's where we start this ACL. That's why I said looking back and moving forward. It's time to take a look back at what has happened over the past 5 to 6 years, and then see what is it that we've learned from our work, and from how we've changed to what we're going to do for in the future. The whole backdrop to the context setting is basically the country strategy 2011 to 2015. I know that we've used that word ad nauseum. In every forum and every platform, we start talking about the country strategy. What does the country strategy mean to us? What is the country strategy? What does it make us do? How does it change? How has it changed us? Okay, so the backdrop, or the whole purpose, or the whole reason for us being able to talk about sustainability is because we've actually looked, from the experiences we've had in implementing our country strategy. What was the major thrust in the country strategy? When the country strategy, when we started implementing the country strategy, even from the point of developing the country strategy and then moving on to implementing the country strategy, the major thrust was change. We talked about the change in 2010, began to implement change from 2011 onwards, and we're still implementing change. So the change was the major thrust of our endeavor to become an organization that is relevant, then moving us on to a position where we can actually start thinking about being an organization that's not only relevant but also sustainable at the present as well as for the future. When we talk about change, having known the organization so well, most of us have been with TLM India for many years. We know that it's a huge organization. It has a long history of 140 years. It has inbuilt culture, systems that are rigid. And for an organization as huge as TLM India, for an organization that's steeped in culture and systems, for that organization to have actually managed that change and become a totally different organization. I mean, these are not speculations. I'm quoting from the report of the impact assessment that was done by external facilitators on the implementation of the country strategy 2011 to 2015, and what the country strategy has actually done, not only to the organization but also to the program that the organization is actually developing and implementing. And therefore, I'm quoting from that report, and the report says, for an organization as huge as TLM India, for an organization that is steeped in culture and systems, age-old systems, it's amazing that this organization has actually made that change, and so we should all be proud of the fact that we've been part of that change. We've been part of managing that change, and we've done it really well. If we have to say it ourselves, yeah, sometimes it's good for a reality check. That sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative, but also let's not shy away from a positive reality check and say, yes, the change has been good, change has been managed well, and change has actually kind of permeated into everything we do, we think, and we say. And the prime example is this morning's devotion. I was not expecting a devotion on social entrepreneurship, and for us, for Surjit to have looked, I mean, how many of us have read that incident of Joseph, in prison, and Joseph interpreting Pharaoh's dream, and never ever thought of that as an example of social entrepreneurship? So it tells us, it should tell us that we've come a long way. We've come a long way into thinking for the future, into actually assimilating change that we've been talking about, we've been implementing, assimilating that change into our lives. So that change has put us in a position where we can say that, confidently say that we are relevant and we will be sustainable. This is the 6th edition of the annual country learning. The first one was in 2010. For those of you who were there in 2010 at the first annual country learning, which was held in Noida, you would remember that it was not in any way, in any way like what we have now. We had absolutely no idea of how to conduct an annual country learning at that point of time. But this 6 years down the line, I can confidently tell you that things have changed. Now our annual country learning are much more focused, sharper, much more, and only part of our learning processes. It's not the only learning process, but it's one of the learning processes. So we've come to that stage. Now remember 2013, was it, Steve? 2013 in Bhopal is the first time we started talking about relevance and sustainability. And we said, are we really relevant? Then we asked ourselves 4 questions. Are we relevant but not sustainable? Are we not relevant but still sustainable? Are we neither relevant nor sustainable? Or are we relevant and sustainable? And I think we said let's go ahead and choose the fourth one. Said because we are relevant and we shall be sustainable. And I think that's where the whole journey on sustainability, a focused approach to sustainability started in Bhopal in 2013. And earlier this year, we said relevance and sustainability is not enough. We need to add another component to it. So we added accountability to relevance and sustainability earlier this year. So now we have three: relevance, accountability, and sustainability, or relevance, sustainability, and accountability. Yeah. So why sustainability? Why should we talk about sustainability? Through various means we've realized that TLM India's program in the context of the leprosy scenario in this country is very relevant. That we as an organization are relevant to actually addressing the issues of people affected by leprosy in this country. And therefore, if we are relevant, then we need to be sustainable, because relevance goes with sustainability. And if we want to add value to the lives of people affected by leprosy, then we need to be sustainable. And that is the first step towards thinking and focusing on sustainability. With our experience of implementing the country strategy over the past 5 years, what has happened is there's a whole lot of things that have happened over the past 5 years. One is that the program implementation has sharpened. We are much more focused on the quality of implementing programs in the field. We have, like I said earlier, we have various platforms for learning. We're generating a whole lot of learning within the organization, and we're learning from that learning in terms of not only recognizing learning, but also putting it back into programs, into either modifying programs or developing new programs based on the learning that we have through various learning platforms. And by implementing programs, by assimilating learning, we have developed experience and expertise within ourselves, and which has actually pushed us into new horizons. We are moving into 5 years ago, we never thought of getting into any advocacy issues. We never thought of talking about general disability issues. We never talked about campaigning. We never talked about fundraising and the way we do now. So newer experiences, new exposure to newer ideas has led us into areas we were not familiar with in the past. But now we are quite comfortable working in those fields. So all these add to the fact that because we are relevant, because our program is increasing or the program is becoming bigger, the whole question of sustainability comes. So if these were to be translated into programs, then if that way enough, then we would have been sustainable long time, before this. But we also need finances to be able to implement those programs, to be able to implement those ideas, to be able to develop programs that are a result of the learnings we've generated through implementation. That is a problem. That's what we've faced in the past 5 years. Starting from 2010, every year we've had to face budget reductions to the tune of 20% of our budget. And if we are cutting budgets by 20% every year, you can imagine the state of the program. Every year, cutting budgets is not just reducing numbers. It has impact on staff, it has impact on activities, it has impact on new thinking, new ideas, right? So for 5 years, we tried to adjust in terms of reducing staff, reducing our programs, not taking up newer areas. But then the learnings that we were generating were so many, and we were so excited with that we had to do something different. We had to go ahead and do something different. So we learned to manage within within the limited resources. And then we started thinking, should we allow financial constraints to prevent us from thinking big? And therefore, I've said 2015 budget was a watershed moment. Watershed moment in terms of actually aspiring to achieve sustainability, financial sustainability for the program in TLM India. Now, why do I say that? When we worked in 2014, late 2014, towards the budget 2015, our gross expenditure was about £6 million. And then we said within the country, we'll raise about £3 million, which meant that the Global Fellowship and other partners would need to fund to the extent of £3 million. At the end of the process, when we began this year in 2015, ready to implement our programs, there was an underfunding of £1 million. Under normal circumstance, that means that translates into 10 crores. Out of a 65 crore budget, we are raising 30 crores, and we had about 25 crores given by the Global Fellowship and other partners, leaving us with a deficit of 10 crores. Generally, what is expected of us is what Gladstone will call it balancing the budget, right? So you make it zero. So either you increase the income or decrease the expenditure. All this while we've been reducing the expenditure to the point where now we said we cannot reduce any further without jeopardizing our programs. And therefore we went to the board and said please accept a deficit budget for this year. Never done before. Board never accepted a deficit budget. 2015, when we went to the India board, they approved a deficit budget, and that was actually a support to all of us. That board has actually approved a deficit budget of £1 million. And then, if 2015 budget was the watershed moment, I'm saying the Kochi commitment was a good game changer. What's the Kochi commitment? I was trying to explain this to Stephen this morning, and I don't know whether Stephen understood the magnitude of the achievement that has come about because of the Kochi commitment. Now, for all those who don't know about Kochi commitment, most of you were there in Kochi, right? And for those who are not familiar with the Kochi commitment, Kochi is a place in South India in Kerala where we had the annual Leprosy annual leadership consultations, which we have every year. At this year's annual leadership consultations, we decided to look at the £1 million deficit we've had, which is a 10 crore deficit in Indian rupees, and we said we cannot reduce our program anymore, and therefore how shall we handle this? Stephen was there. He was actually facilitating the whole exercise, and then the Kochi commitment was nothing but what we said was we will raise, converting into GBP, because we have people not just from India here. What it meant was that we will raise another £1.8 million worth of income within India. And how did we arrive at that magic figure of 1.8 billion? The 1 million was to overcome the budget deficit or underfunding, and the 0.8 million was the liabilities we're carrying forward from the past 2 to 3 years. And we set ourselves a target of 1.8 million, which roughly converts to 18 crores in Indian rupees. And then that was based on two principles. One was, we talked about disruptive innovation, how disruptive innovation can actually change the way we think and change the way we do our programs. And two, social entrepreneurship. How can we apply the principles of social entrepreneurship to be able to reach the target? Have we reached the target? I don't think so. But why am I still smiling? Because I think as of September figures, and if we project those figures to December, we'll reach £1 million extra income, or 10 crores against a target of 18 crores. Right? Which is a tremendous achievement, and which means that the budget deficit we started with will be wiped out by the end of this year, though we'll be carrying forward our liabilities from the past. That's okay, right? So at least that's the first step. So that's why we're talking about sustainability. So in a situation where we have no recourse to funds from the Global Fellowship, we need to find alternate funding. We need to find ways to generate income within the country to be able to sustain the program we have, because we find that our program is relevant for the context, in the context we are working in this country, and therefore the whole question of sustainability arises. Next slide, please. When we started this talk about financial sustainability, we inadvertently used the word self-sufficiency. Am I right? Yeah, we said we'll be self-sufficient, but I didn't realize that it was not a very good word as far as our colleagues in the Global Fellowship are concerned, because they said self-sufficiency. Oh, you want to be independent of the Global Fellowship? Said no. So we quickly changed the term to financial sustainability, so that the whole spirit of fellowship continues and is not marred by us using a word that may kind of disruptive innovation. Yes, but yeah. So we said financial sustainability. We want to reach the stage of financial sustainability because of like I said, because we are relevant. Right? Now, before I finish it off, complete this, I just wanted to just draw your attention to one thing. Why are we talking about financial sustainability? Because when we look at our budgets, when the Global Fellowship looks at the budgets, the reference point there is the net deficit. But we are saying our reference point is the gross expenditure, not the net deficit, because in the whole discussions, the gross expenditure, if you don't consider gross expenditure, you're not considering the income that TLM India raises. Right? If you actually put it down in the Global Fellowship, okay, the biggest income generator is England Wales. They raise about £5 million now, isn't it? 5.5 next year, right? They're projecting £5.5 million next year for 2016. We are projecting 4 million or 4.2 million income for 2016, right? So, but that because we are only focusing on the net deficit, the income that is raised in India to support the program gets sidelined. So this time when we presented to the board, we said we're not presenting the net deficit to the board, we're presenting the gross expenditure. And if you have time and if you have a chance to look at those pie diagrams, it will tell you against the gross expenditure, how much is TLM India raising to support our program and how much is the Global Fellowship and others. You will see that both in 2015 and 2016 projected, there's a 15% funding gap, which means there's no so for 2015 at least, hopefully by the end of this year we'll wipe out that 15%. Okay? So these are some of the reasons why we are saying we are talking about financial sustainability. We don't want to reduce our program, we don't want to cut our program, because we believe that we are still relevant to be able to relevant in the context that we're working in. Therefore, we need to seriously think about financial sustainability. Yeah. Next slide. So, what are the expectations from these 2 days of meetings? One is to learn from each other. I think we've already started on a very good note with devotions, that we've already started thinking in terms of social entrepreneurship and how does it apply to us, both in terms of our spiritual life, in terms of our professional life, in terms of our personal life. Okay, so we are going to listen to various people share their experiences, and I think that's a good way to learn from each other. So one of my primary expectations from these meetings would be that there would be a whole lot of learning that's generated, which we will take back with us and apply to our own, whether it's TLM India, whether it's outside, whether the others, non-TLM India guests who are here. I hope and trust that this will happen. That we will learn to, whatever we learn, that we will apply it in terms of our program development and implementation. That we will continue to change, that we will continue to adapt new ways to assimilate new ways so that we can adapt to the changing environment around us. The end point being obviously relevance. We need to be relevant to be able to make a difference in the lives of people affected by leprosy. So that's where I want to stop. That why is it that we are talking about financial sustainability? There's every reason why we should be talking about financial sustainability. We are looking at social entrepreneurship. We are also looking at disruptive innovation. And though we're focusing on social entrepreneurship over these next 2 days, let's not forget that even disruptive innovation, which we talked about earlier this year, also is a good way to actually disrupt the processes that we have within the organization, so as to become much more, become leaner and sharper in the way we think and act and how we develop our programs. Thank you very much.